We often say yes before we've really thought it through. And in the performing arts, those decisions can shape everything that comes next. So today, I want to share a simple framework to help with evaluating opportunities. Welcome back to the Singer's Compass. I'm Courtney Ross, and I'm really glad you're here. Today, I want to start off with a question, sort of a logistical question. That is, with or without headphones, this is technically a podcast, and I have been debating whether I should be wearing headphones or not. So I'd love your feedback. Let me know what you think. There's been one episode with, one without. I'm going to do today with, and I would really appreciate your feedback. So let's get into the episode. As artists, we're constantly evaluating our opportunities, whether it's a role, a young artist program, a competition, maybe a church position, or maybe it's working with a new teacher. And while many of us spend a great deal of time and focus on getting opportunities, we tend to spend much less time evaluating them once they arrive. The right decision usually depends on where we are in our development, what we're trying to build, and maybe even what season of life we're in. Let's not forget that we're often emotionally invested in them. So, when said opportunity arrives, sometimes unexpectedly, we're already carrying hopes, ambitions, expectations, and maybe even fears about what it might mean for our future. And because all of those emotions can be present at the same time, it can be difficult to look at the opportunity clearly. We often rush in and say, yes. But have you asked yourself, why am I drawn to this opportunity in the first place? We often end up accidentally ignoring questions like these. Let me illustrate this by sharing an experience from my own career. In my late 20s, I had a last-minute invitation to audition for a production of The Merry Widow, sung in English, with a regional company in California. I was not expecting to be considered for the lead role. I was actually going out for a supporting role and would have been thrilled to have gotten that. To my surprise, I was offered the principal role. And at the time, it felt like a real breakthrough. The experience itself was incredible. I worked with wonderful colleagues, received positive reviews, and experienced the kind of audience response that every performer dreams about. For a while, it felt like exactly the kind of opportunity I had been waiting for and working towards. But what followed was more complicated than I expected. Because while the experience was truly meaningful, it didn't immediately lead to the next step I had imagined it would. And at that time in my career, I was carrying a lot of pressure about where I thought I should be at that point. When those next opportunities didn't materialize in the way I expected, I started to question myself. I had taken that path instead of taking another opportunity that was offered almost simultaneously. Not to say the other opportunity would have been better, but I always had the what if question in my head. Needless to say, doubt set in, and I really let it throw me off for a bit. Looking back on how I let it affect me, I can see that I was partly evaluating the experience through the lens of what I thought it was supposed to lead to, rather than what it was. And I think that's one of the reasons I've become more intentional about how I evaluate opportunities today. Some opportunities that seem incredibly important end up having very little impact, and others that seem small can end up shaping our experience, giving us more visibility and direction more than we had expected. So over time, I realized that I can't always know which opportunities will have the greatest impact on my career. What I can do is make decisions that reflect my goals, values, and the kind of career I'm trying to build, in a way that gives me a greater sense of ownership over my own path. I've also learned that when we place too much weight on any single opportunity, it's easy to become discouraged when things don't unfold the way we hoped. So I began asking myself a set of questions whenever I was considering an opportunity, not because they would lead me to the perfect decision or answer, but because they helped me approach any decision with more intention. I like to think of it as an opportunity reflection guide. I'll go through it with you now. There are 5 questions. The first one is, why am I considering this opportunity? What is drawing me to it? Is it the music, the company, the people involved? Does it feel like a challenge? Maybe the location? Or simply that it's really exciting? The goal isn't to judge or answer. It's simply to understand what's attracting you to the opportunity. Question 2. What am I hoping this opportunity will provide? Experience, connections, visibility, financial stability, future opportunities, maybe with the same company, or perhaps something else entirely. Sometimes we're evaluating the opportunity itself, and sometimes we're evaluating what we hope it might lead to. Question 3. What will this opportunity require from me? Not just financially, but in terms of time, energy, travel, preparation, and rehearsal. And what might I have to give up in order to make room for it? Does that mean less time with my family? Question 4. If this opportunity didn't lead anywhere beyond itself, would it still feel meaningful or worthwhile? This question is often uncomfortable, but it can make things very clear. Because not every opportunity needs to become something else in order for it to have value. Question 5. Does this opportunity align with the direction I'm moving in? Not just professionally, but personally as well. Does it support the artist I want to become? Does it reflect my values? Does it fit into my life right now at this stage? Ultimately, no one can make these decisions for us, even when we're receiving well-meaning advice from mentors, teachers, or colleagues who may see things differently. Each artist has different goals, different circumstances, and a different vision for the life they're trying to build. The goal isn't to eliminate uncertainty. It's simply to make decisions with a little more awareness and intention. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Singer's Compass. And until next time, wherever you are on your artistic journey, I hope you continue to follow your own compass.